Smiles of a Summer Night was not the first film that converted a whole generation of students and 60s film aficionados. It was really the Seventh Seal. Once Seventh Seal had this huge success, which completely dwarfed the success internationally of Smiles, we all went to see his earlier pictures, and among them was Smiles of a Summer Night, and that was a revelation because suddenly we saw that he had another side to him, which was this comedy skill.
When he was doing Smiles of a Summer Night, he was at the end of a rope. I mean, if it wouldn't have been a success, he would have been out of business, really. I think you have to go to the past, I mean Bergman's past and his beginnings, to understand what happened in 1955, because he made his first feature film as a director in 1946, I think. And then he had different producers. He didn't have any commercial success.
It's very intriguing that Bergman finally had got the recipe right for making money. Yeah, that he knew he had to structure the film in such a way that people would go out into the night air feeling good. And they had not gone out into the night air feeling good after Sawdust and Tinsel, for example, or after his previous film, Dreams, Journey into Autumn, which was also a real downer.
This is a full-fledged comedy, Smiles of a Summer Night. And I think it was an adventure, really.
This was going to be a big budget film. It was apparently around $100,000 US. It was the most expensive of all the Swedish films.
For that time, yeah.
Yeah, for that year.
I don't remember quite clearly how it came about that that Svensk film industry accepted him, because, as I told you, he had been working for other producers. But maybe part of it due to the fact that, of course, everybody accepted that Ingmar Bergman is a talent, is a big talent. And probably also the head of Svensk film industry, Grimling, who believed in Bergman.
And I think also he was coming off the back of some great successes at Malmö. Bergman, since 1952, had been the director, or the artistic director, at the Malmö Municipal Theatre. And he was Flavor of the Month in theatrical circles. He'd done Lehar's Merry Widow, he'd done Molière, and he had formed this group of actors and actresses. And they would work 7 months a year on stage productions, and then once a summer they would go off and make a film. So this became an incredible rhythm.
You could also add that at that time actors and actresses in theaters were not very well paid, not even by Swedish standards, and they got more money out of the films that they made. But I think that talking about him at that period in the 40s or early 50s, he was still considered by critics and other people a genius. I mean, he was a genius and is a genius.
But not outside Sweden yet. I think Smiles of a Summer Night was the breakthrough there.
No, nothing outside Sweden, almost nothing. Smiles of a Summer Night changed it all overnight.
You can't pin one label on Bergman's comedy. In a way, it's like Oscar Wilde. In a way, it's like Molière. In another way, it's like Marivaux. But it all comes back to dialogue. I think his dialogue is funnier than the situations he creates, actually. His dialogue is so sparkling.
Vi inviterade till gamla fru Armfelt på Rya på lördagssöndag. Egermans kommer också dit.
Det kan bli intressant.
Ser du, mitt i prick.
Nu kommer jag skjuta dig istället. Vad skulle du säga då?
Of course, you must have actors who can speak that dialogue. And of course, he knew them. And that's why. I mean, that scene was between Jarkulla and Gunnar Björnström with the Russian roulette and so on. I mean, you have to... the dialogue is fine.
About 3 years prior to that, he had made an episode film called Waiting Women. And the last episode of this featured Gunnar Björnstrand and Eva Dahlbeck, who had never worked together before, trapped in an elevator. And it was a wonderful comedy situation. And he wrote the parts very well, and they played them with great brio. And as a result, he starred them in A Lesson in Love, which was made in '54. And that developed this relationship. So by the time he came to Smiles of a Summer Night, I think he was ready to really develop this comedy strain and to use Gunnar and Eva in the main parts there as the sort of hinges of the film.
Yeah, that's quite true. On the other hand, there has always been a sort of comic part of Ingmar's work, already in his work as a writer, which is less known. You can find, let's say, elements of later work in all these scribblings and writings, and the plays he wrote.
But there's also a very serious undercurrent in the film, which is the impotence of the young man, the young Henrik, who needs to be blooded in love and is terrified of being so.
You also come back to a theme which I always mention when I speak about Ingmar, the humiliation,
Yes.
which exists there. Humiliation is also the inability of physical love. That's also humiliation.
I think that in Smiles of a Summer Night, he is trying to get behind the mask that we all show to the world. And that, like the humiliation that you mentioned, Jörn, I think that this mask is a big theme in his work. It goes right the way through to Cries and Whispers and all the major films. And it's exemplified in the makeup that he gives to Gunnar Björnstrand with his peculiar beard and finely cut moustache and his strange hairdo. And this is almost like a theatre mask. And so the film unfurls, and as it unfurls, so these people try to find their true selves. And some of them don't want to. They want to hide behind the mask. And it's only as the night goes on, this long summer night, that gradually their real desires and their real personalities are revealed, I think.
You can also say that the idea of love-making or getting to know people or maybe getting to hate people, whatever emotional things might happen during Midsummer Night. And this light which stays on and on.
There's a pagan quality to it, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Maybe we should emphasize how important in Scandinavia the midsummer is, because you have such a short summer period here in the Nordic countries, and only people who live here or who visit here are aware of how intense everything is in that period. Everything has to be lived. People come out of their shell at the end of the spring, and they live these 2 months of summer very, very passionately. But I think also there's this feeling in nearly all Bergman of a desperate reaching out to other people. We all in our lives reach out, and Ingmar's characters are trying to reach someone else. They need to get that emotional contact.
But they are not very funny.
And they're not very funny, no.
No.
I think his comedy works better when it's situated in a serious context. Yeah. And I think he likes to balance this irony with the serious bit. And the comedy prepares one for the blow under the ribs to the solar plexus. When you're least expecting it, he'll come in with a very sharp moment. There's a wonderful moment in Smiles of a Summer Night when Margit Karlqvist, who plays the Count's wife, suddenly looks into camera and says, I hate men's bodies. I hate the hair on their body. I loathe them. And suddenly you feel a chill down your spine because that's spoken from the heart.
Stackars Charlotte. Jag hatar honom. Jag hatar honom, jag hatar honom, jag hatar honom. Men ni är otäcka. Högfärdiga och inbilska. Har hår över hela kroppen. Han ler mot mig. Han kysser mig. Han kommer till mig på natten. Han gör mig från vettet. Han smeker mig. Talar vänligt med mig. Ger mig blommor. Alltid gula rosor. Talar om sina hästar. Om sina kvinnor. Om sina dueller. Om sina soldater. Om sina jakter. Talar. Kärleken är en avskyvärd hantering.
I think Bergman has, in a way, caught us defenseless because of this comedy shell which the film has. The more I think about the film, the more I'm thinking of Gunnar Fischer and the visual side of that picture, and how Bergman has used two great cameramen in his life. Sven Nykvist obviously has become the better known because from 1960 onwards he did all the films.
At the end, Fischer and Ingmar didn't get along very well together. And that was probably the reason that Sven took over as chief cameraman. Something happened. You know, something sometimes happened between Ingmar and his collaborators.
But many of the classics of Bergman were done by Gunnar Fischer, who had a very special type of lighting. And in this film, he created this sun-splashed, sun-dappled, wonderful, wonderful tone for the film. I think he used white better than it's ever been used in a black and white film, as opposed to the blacks, particularly in the dinner table sequence, which was wonderfully dressed by Per Lundgren and his team. The whole table is groaning with glassware and plates and candelabra. But Fischer was able to get the difference in tonality so well and so emphatically that certainly we had not seen anything quite like that. Naima Wistrand is one of my favorite Swedish actresses. She was, I don't know how old, in her 70s at least by the time she played these parts, and she went on until she was in her 90s playing parts, and was a remarkable character. She, in a way, is a fulcrum of Smiles of a Summer Night, because she runs this country house with a rod of iron. And then you had Ulla Jacobsson. She appeared in One Summer of Happiness. And then, as happened with Alexandra Stewart on the set of Truffaut's Day for Night, she arrived fully pregnant on the set of Smiles of a Summer Night. So Margot, who was this wonderfully gifted costume designer of Ingmar's, had to design dresses for her which were capable of infinite expansion, so they wouldn't show her pregnancy as the film advanced.
Harriet had her breakthrough as an actress when she was very young. She was then 20 when they made Summer with Monica, and they were then together, Ingmar and Harriet. But after Smiles of a Summer Night, for a long time she didn't act at all in Ingmar's films. And maybe due to the fact that her, let's say, independence as a person, an actress, hasn't been always to the liking of Ingmar.
Yet ironically, that's the side of her personality that he exploited so well in Summer with Monica, Sawdust and Tinsel, and Smiles of a Summer Night, and you feel he's tantalized by this. She represents a kind of carnal liberty which Ingmar would love to indulge himself. Yeah, but it's something beyond his reach, something which tantalizes him, I think.
Yes.
Some of the things that Bergman identifies most with, you feel, are the scenes between Harriet and Ulka Friedel playing the groom. I think he's happiest in those scenes, really, because they're lusty, they're down to earth. And when he's dealing with the upper classes, he's almost mocking them, the haute bourgeoisie.
At the turn of that century, until the 20th century, you had sort of the time of the bourgeois age, and that was all of this partly destroyed by the First World War.
It's an upstairs-downstairs situation, isn't it? And the class divisions are much better exemplified, I think, in that period. Yeah, Ulka Friedel was a wonderful, staple member of the Malmö Municipal Theatre Group. In Smiles of a Summer Night, he again is in his element because he always liked to play these very lusty parts. I think that Bergman likes not the working class, that's too glib an expression, but I think he likes the more fundamental class of human being. He sides with them, the more earthy type of character. And so Fried the groom is someone with whom he identifies or would love to be, much more than he would like to be the Gunnar Björnstrand character, for example.
Yeah, no, you could, of course, maybe express it very simply by saying that Ingmar has been against pretentious people.
That's right. That's very
lots
true.
of
Yes.
the, let's say, nobility or priests are pretentious and have more pretensions than their value.
And they're a slave to social rituals.
And somehow the so-called lower classes don't have these pretensions, in his view.
That's why Fried really gets almost the last word in the film. There is a sense that the celebration is, it's almost like satyr and nymph. They're dancing around on this grass and this wonderful, wonderful dawn light. I think that Bergman really feels that they represent the future. Just as he often, at the end of his films, he often uses someone who's quite innocent and unpretentious to carry forward the film. I think that Smiles of a Summer Night will always rank among the 3 or 4 best films of the 50s that he made because of its confidence. It's such a confident picture. And The Seventh Seal, Wild Strawberries, may be greater films in some kind of celestial balance. But I think that Smiles of a Summer Night will always have an audience because of its earthy quality and because of its dazzling dialogue.
I think Smiles of a Summer Night was enough to convince his producer, the production company, Svensk Filmindustri, to continue with him.
He'd wanted to make The Seventh Seal for at least a year, and when he heard about the prize at Cannes, I think he was in the toilets at the time, as he often is, and he rushed out of the toilet and rushed up to Carl-Anders Dümling's office and said, "Now, Carl-Anders, you've got to give me the green light for Seventh Seal," and he did. And so that summer of '56, they were able to shoot The Seventh Seal, and that film really made his reputation take off.